Well, hello and welcome to the much anticipated plant tour for 2024. I had every intention, you guys, of putting out a plant tour this spring, but it is currently October. And so just want to thank you guys for sticking around, for being patient with me. It's just been a struggle to find the time. And we are standing in a completely different space than any of my previous plant tours. So I'm really excited to share it with you guys, get into the room itself just a little bit, show you guys what we've got set up here. And then of course, what you came for, we are gonna look at every single plant I own. And so sit down, get comfortable, get yourself a cup of coffee, because we're gonna go ahead and get started. Now, the backstory to this brand new space is that my husband and I, we are homeowners. We love where we live, but we do plan to grow our family. We already have 2 children, and we hope and pray that we'll add some more soon. And so last year you saw a greenhouse set up in one of our upstairs bedrooms. But as my husband and I talked about our plans for the future, we wanted to make that bedroom more accessible to be kids' bedrooms. We have 2 children, like I said already, and it's about time for them to kind of get a little bit of a larger space. So the problem presented itself: where will the plants go? If you've been with me for very long and you watched my first plant tour, I used to have plants throughout the house. I had an area in the dining room, an area in the master bedroom, and an area in the living room. But as my firstborn began to walk, began to pull things, began to destroy plants, that no longer was an option. So that's why I had moved everything into a greenhouse tent. It was upstairs, it was out of reach. We want to make use of our bedrooms and use them as bedrooms. So although my plant collection was not shrinking, it seemed like the space was shrinking. We couldn't really use the places we'd used in the past. So we've had a screened in porch, and I had a vision of turning this porch into a glamorous French provincial style greenhouse for the plants. I presented this plan to my husband, who I love so dearly, and he showed up. He made it happen. I'm going to insert footage, if I can find it here, of what this room looked like before. It was a carpeted screened in porch with screens going across one wall, and then we had 3 enclosed walls. So we tore down those screens and we put up instead some beautiful French doors. So we completely enclosed this room with the French doors to make it an indoor space. We also ripped up the carpet, and we did a little bit of work installing tile floors as well. And my husband and I did all the work. And I'm just totally in love with the checkerboard flooring. It has such a beautiful design element to it. And I know that on this channel, I've mostly only talked about plants, but I really am an artist at heart as well. I love interior design. I try to apply these concepts and principles everywhere in my house. So I wanted this room to not only be a practical space, but a beautiful space. And we have achieved that. I think it's taken a lot of minor adjustments here and there, because, you know, the plants, they do take up a lot. The plants do require a lot in terms of shelving, lighting. We have a whole watering setup, but I did want the room to be beautiful, and I think it is. spring of 2024. That would probably be the main reason why you didn't get a plant tour in the spring, was because that's when we were putting together all the finishing touches, as well as the great migration of plants from upstairs to downstairs. And if you've ever had to move a large collection of plants, things do not look cute on day one, because it's kind of like your plants have to grow into this space. These shelves did not look as amazing as they do now. And it took me a while to figure out some layout. It is a small space here, and although I wanted a chair and a work table, it's taken a few months to kind of work through some things, figure out what works and what's really impractical. So we're here, and it is October now. And I go into this room every day, and every day I look around and I think about wanting to film this plant tour, but nothing is ever quite perfect. And I don't know what hit me, but today I decided, doesn't matter, they don't care, they are here to see the plants. So that's what we are here to do. There is a lot to cover and a lot of plants that are out of frame, but things that I am able to grab and actually bring up to the camera. I think I'm going to do it that method this time, so that I can, maybe spin plants around, talk about them, things that are happening, things that I'm excited about. So I'm going to start with the top shelf, and if I angle my device, there are a few things I cannot or dare not pull down to show you, just a few. Most of them I will be able to bring to you, but I do want to first draw your attention to this plant that you may recognize from previous tours. This is my Anthurium magnificum by Warraquianum. It is a stunning plant. The size is insane, and a little bit of that here is lost on camera since it is so much higher up above me. But she's a beautiful specimen. She's flowering now. She has been pollinated with, what did I pollinate it with? A Dressleri hybrid. I'll show you soon. She's the previous seed bearer to my first hybrid, which I will show you how that one is looking very soon. But this is an all-time favorite plant. She's truly giant, and I don't think you're quite able to appreciate that from this angle. So I'll throw in a recent photo I took the last time I did get her down. I took a photo of myself standing right beside the newest leaf at the time, so that you can really get an idea for the scale of this plant. It is worth appreciating. It is worth beholding. And as I'm looking here, really that might be the only thing I'm unable to grab for you. Everything else, I think I'll either be able to bring it down to myself, or to just kind of point at it, or provide some B-roll. So speaking of hybridization, let me go ahead and show you my newest project that I am so excited about. Sitting right next door, oh, there's a spider web on that. Don't ask me about spiders, because yesterday and today I have seen 3 spiders in here. I don't know how they're getting in. I haven't even talked to you about weather stripping and sealing for the outdoor elements, because we are about to go into the winter months. It's already getting cold. And so we've got a space heater, which is very effective at keeping this room in the 70s, which is where I've set it, just to be conscious of energy usage. But the spiders are somehow getting in. So now I have spider web on my hand, but let me just go ahead and show you this outstanding specimen. This is my King of Spades Anthurium. So you may often hear me refer to this as HU. I might use King of Spades. It's kind of interchangeable. This is the newest leaf here, and I'll put it right here beside my face so that you can see its size. It's really a beautiful plant. I love how round it is. And I love, the emergents have this beautiful rainbow pink color. And if I can, I'll insert a clip for you. She is such a happy and healthy plant, which was, it's such a contrast from how this plant started out. This was one of the first things I ever imported from Indonesia. So it took a lot of time to acclimate. And I also was very adventurous with cutting and propagating, and I still am. I learned the hard way, however, that this specific plant hates to be cut, hates to be propagated. Every single cutting I took rotted and died, and I also dealt with rot on the mother plant after the cutting was taken. If you have an Anthurium King of Spades and it behaves similarly, I would love to hear about it. I do have a second King of Spades that's a little bit atypical, and I've cut it last night. Took me a little while to work up the nerve after my experience with this one. But I'm so happy to finally be at the place in my collection where I don't only have baby plants anymore. Some of them are really big, bushy, very healthy. Let me see if I can show you the root system on this. It is so extensive. I believe that this plant right now is in 100% sphagnum moss and loving it. And as I mentioned, I have recently attempted another hybridization. I did apply this pollen live on Instagram, so if you're interested in watching that, it's not very eventful, but it's been pollinated with my Papillilanimum A+, so you can watch that if you'd like. You can go to my Instagram account and find it. But I absolutely, the pollen took. It was a successful pollination, and now it's just a waiting game to see how long it takes for this plant to form berries, and I'm so excited about the seed harvest on this. Next up is a plant that has seen better days. I can't really tell you what happened. I think I just rearranged it, put it somewhere, and then kind of forgot about it because she has been a little bit neglected. But this is a hybrid between Papillilanimum and Forgetii. I honestly can't remember which parent came first, and that does matter with Anthurium. Typically, when you see a name of a hybrid written, the mother is supposed to be written first. So I can't remember if this is Papillilanimum by Forgetii or Forgetii by Papillilanimum. I'm not sure. The hybrid itself has kind of gained a nickname of Velvet Mask. I am just now seeing some pests on this plant, however. And that has been a new and interesting battle since moving to this room. There is a lot more crossover between my plants and the outdoor world since they're so close to my backyard. We go in and out of this door to access our back deck. My husband grills out there. And so I have noticed a lot of new pests. Specifically, I am finding scale on this right now as we speak. So I may even take 2 minutes to break from filming, treat this right now before it spreads anywhere else, because recently scale has just been the bane of my existence, and as soon as I see one, I need to eradicate it. If you're curious, I've been using a little cotton swab with alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, like 70 or 90%, and just kind of spot treating every place I see an insect. I'll kill it with the alcohol. That seemed to work well, and then I'll just keep this one aside for a few weeks to monitor and make sure that there are no more pests. All right, next up here is my Anthurium Papillilanimum A+. This was the first fancy Anthurium I ever bought. It was such a small little baby, and it came at such a high price. So it's been so rewarding to watch this thing grow and flourish. We've got so many leaves on here. Of course, the other ones are a little bit worse for wear. But still, such a beautiful velvet shimmer to this plant. The size of the newest leaf in reference to my head is pretty large. And let me just make sure this one doesn't have any scale, because I'd be so upset. The root system on this one is looking fantastic. She's still potted up in leca because honestly, maybe I'll get into it more. I've moved most of my Anthurium away from leca, which might be a shocker if you have followed me for a while, because I used to be 100% leca in everything. I have noticed that some of my Anthurium just do better in a different mix, and that's fine. But ones that are like really well rooted into leca and seemingly very happy, I've not been bothering them. Like my giant Magnificum Ex Warrock, that one is totally fine. And I am not going to undertake an unpotting of that. We do have a flower on this one that is in the pollen stage. I don't think I have anything else to use this pollen on right now, but did I even pollinate this thing? I don't even think I pollinated this flower at all. This one is such a proficient flowerer that it's almost old news at this point. When I get a new flower on this plant, it's almost no longer exciting because it's almost more of great, now I have to figure out what to pollinate, which is such a funny problem to have. And it is so incredible to me that these plants, which thrive in regions around the world that are nothing like where I live, they can be this happy in my care, that they are constantly flowering. Not everything is doing fantastic though. This is what remains of my Anthurium warraquianum. I've had it ever since it was a seedling. It was never really doing bad, but I don't know. I recently cut off all the leaves because they were just yellow and crispy and ugly. And it's just been a waiting game for the newest leaves. I don't have a picture to show you of when she looked beautiful because she's never really looked beautiful in my care, honestly. I'm not quite giving up, and just last night I decided I need to move her into my cabinet. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now because I don't want to give up on this plant. Warraquianum is such a beautiful species, and hey, it takes some people a long time to figure them out. I'm clearly one of those people. So here's hoping that a move to the plant cabinet is exactly what she needs. My Anthurium Fairchild crystallinum is doing so well. I have these beautiful, pristine looking leaves. This is the newest one. It's still a little bit floppy. Just look at that character in the vein structure. I think that people who enjoy this plant are really seeking something with a flatter sinus, like the original mother plant. But hey, I'm very content with this one. I'm so happy with it. It is such a beautiful plant, and it was a wish list item for a very long time. And I remember the night I bought it on a Facebook purge, I typed sold. I was the first comment. My heart was pounding. So this is truly such a satisfying plant to own. And honestly, wow, guys, look at this specimen. That is just gorgeous. I still do keep a lot of scindapsus, although most of this video will be Anthurium. But here is just a cute little scindapsus argyrius dark form. She's not really big and bushy because I think I have kind of left my scindapsus to their own devices. And when they get long and viney, it can really overwhelm me in this room. So I've just been cutting off vines and like giving them away, throwing them away, hardly even making the effort to propagate and replant. I don't know if anybody else has found that same experience, but it's almost like since migrating over to mostly keeping Anthurium, you just kind of get used to their growth pattern. And for me, when I do have a vining plant that like starts to trail down, it just makes my shelves look messy, and it makes my room feel messy, and it's just too overwhelming for me. But such a beautiful plant nonetheless. This is fantastic though. Oh my goodness. Look at this absolutely stunning plant. This is, all I know it as is Dock Block by Luxuriance. I do not know which Dock Block. I don't know if it was Zara or Michelle or Zara Michelle. I don't know, but it is, I got rid of my Luxuriance because I had this. This is such a better plant, in my opinion, than regular Anthurium luxurians. It is hardier. I have had no crisping or yellowing issues. It's got the same outstanding texture as luxurians, but it's velvety. And the velvet even has like an iridescent purpley sheen, but it's not completely velvet. It's kind of more like a matte, and it's just outstanding. And the emergence, if you were to, I'm gonna put it in, I'm gonna show you videos of the emergent process on this plant because the color changes almost every day you look at it. This is absolutely a favorite of mine. I need to get like a cute little picture of me with this plant because, wow, it's absolutely beautiful and definitely one of the favorites. And if you're jealous, that's okay. You can be jealous of this one because it is absolutely beautiful. And we do have one little Cheeto over here, just an older leaf, I guess, that has yellowed due to time, easily snapped right off. put it in the trash can, and no hard feelings, but I did want to show you the root system on here. It's not like incredible. I think for a plant of this size, I would have expected more roots, but I did just want to show you that this is another plant that is perfectly fine in LECA. I mean, clearly, she is happy in LECA, so I'm not going to bother her. She can stay right where she is. Now this beauty is not Anthurium warraquianum. This is a cross between warraquianum and Cyrenoi. Again, with this hybrid, I can't really tell you with certainty which one was the mother, which one was the father, but it is quite a bit hardier than pure warraquianum with a very similar look. These are probably my only, this one is probably my only longleaf Anthurium. I can't say that it has been 100% happy. I can show you the stem here and you might be like, yeah girl, what has this plant been doing? What have you been doing to it? We've definitely got, I think my problem with these type of Anthurium, and I believe it's the same problem with the warraquianum, is that it might push out one leaf that's really happy, but when it's ready to push out the next leaf, be it from the previous petiole or from a cataphyll, it struggles to continue with the growth. And so it will then activate a growth point elsewhere on the plant. Because just looking at this, we've actually got a few other growth points where I don't know if they're currently active, but they were active at some point. Here's one of them right here. There's another smaller one here down lower. And you can tell if you look at the structure of this stem that it was cut here and then it grew here and then it was cut here and then it grew here. And frankly, I don't remember cutting this plant. So I think that it was just a situation where the cataphyll itself died off or dried out. But regardless of what I've been doing wrong, it still continues to grow. It continues to size up, giving me these beautiful long leaves, which are, such a jewel in a collection to have something that's a little bit more different and stand out like this leaf shape in size. So I'm definitely not happy here with the internodal spacing, but I'm just gonna leave it be. I don't think that this plant is in high demand. I don't think that I would profit very much from turning this into a prop and chop project. And frankly, I just don't want to risk making her upset. The only thing that is a little bit of a problem is that it is now touching the ceiling. And so I would be a little bit concerned about, subsequent growth, but that problem is as easy to solve as just putting it on a lower shelf. So I think I'll probably just do that. I don't want to mess with her, but I did want to show you because it really is just a beautiful, beautiful plant. All right, we have finished with the top shelf and now we are down to this shelf that's right behind me at about head level. So this is Anthurium, this is Crystal Hope, and this plant will always hold a special place in my heart. I don't think I could ever get rid of her. She was the very first plant ever that I successfully pollinated and harvested seed from. I just self-pollinated this beauty. She had 2 inflorescences at the same time and they were spaced out perfectly. And it was probably one of the most exciting things I've done as a plant hobbyist, was to successfully pollinate something and just watch that process from start to finish for the first time. I sold most, if not all, of the berries or seedlings that I did procure from her because I really only need this one. But it was just such a special thing, and this plant just has not stopped giving. She's just so pretty. Again, another one, just happy in LECA. Who's gonna argue with her? I'm not gonna argue with her. We've got a lot of growth here outside of the pot, but I'm also not even gonna bother with a repot. And this plant did have scale recently. It was one of the first ones I think ever. But this is just proof to you guys that some pest infestations, although they may be scary or alarming, they don't have to ruin your plant. And I think scale is one of those things where as long as you catch it early, You spot treat every insect you find. You keep it quarantined and make sure that the problem is not continuing to spread. Your plant's gonna be good to go. I'm pretty sure it gave me this leaf recently after the scale treatment. So this is just living proof that pests do not have to be the end of your story. This is Anthurium. What do we even call it these days? It used to be known as BVEP, which was an acronym that stood for Black Velvet Eastern Panama. That was the name of this plant after it had been discovered, but before it was formally described. And now it is known as the Anatolaki, named after Rory Antolok, who I guess was the one who discovered this plant. I still don't quite know what to call it. I tend to think of it as the BVEP. I don't know if anybody else says it like, you know, spells out the letters in their mind. But beautiful plant. I'm actually having trouble getting my camera to focus on it. This is the newest leaf and probably the best looking in my care. I've had it for quite a long time, but always seems to get mechanical damage on the leaves. This one's not that bad, but it was a bit of a learning curve to protect the emergence on this plant, especially from the fan. During the summer months, it gets extremely hot in this room, and so I would have a fan going and it would kind of blow the emergence around like crazy, and that is where all of this damage came from. And so there it is. But this newest leaf is absolutely beautiful, and this is a plant that's very happy in my newer Anthurium mix. Anything that I've acquired or repotted recently will go into this. It is sphagnum and perlite. There's not a ratio I can tell you. I just mix it together until it looks really appetizing, and my plants have been loving it. You guys saw that, didn't you? Yeah, because my camera's still recording. This is my little baby philodendron billeti variegated, and I've recently cut off the top. I can't remember if I did it more so I could make a quick buck or because I just wasn't happy with the variegation, but the plant has responded by activating 2 growth points. Here's the first one, and leaf number 1 on first impression looks like it might be all green. Here's the second growth point right there. Sorry, this is really hard to show you. So I'm not even worried about this. Either this one will have a first leaf all green and then it will throw some variegation, or this growth point will be variegated. I'm not sure. I'm not worried about it. I've just been enjoying watching this one grow. It stands out in the collection as a philodendron with a long leaf, and I think it might be the only, no it's not, but it does have yellow variegation. So a super cute plant, and I'm excited for this one to grow big and bushy. This is that atypical King of Spades that I mentioned that I've only just recently gotten the nerve to chop. I chopped it last night due to some high demand. And if you don't know about me, all of my plants were purchased with money that I made from taking cuttings and selling propagations. So I am always willing to take a cutting of a plant at the right time, because that's where the money comes from that funds this collection. I am a homemaker, stay-at-home mom with my 2 little ones, so I don't have a cash flow happening. So I did cut this last night. I hope that the propagations take off, much unlike my other King of Spades. I would hate, and I'm hoping and praying that it's not like the other one. But I thought this specimen was so stunning. I really try to stay away from acquiring duplicates, but this one just to me looked so different than King of Spades that I did really want to get it. It was sold to me as having ruffly edges, which that's very obscure. It's very hard to see. I think it presented more at a seedling stage, but I just think the vein structure is beautiful. It does have kind of a bluish sheen, and each leaf has the cutest little tail. And you know, just because I can, let me go ahead and grab my regular King of Spades and show you a side by side. There's going to be a little bit of a discrepancy just due to the maturity differences between these plants, but nonetheless, you should be able to see, although this is the same plant, you know, this is the same ID, King of Spades, you can get plants that look completely different. And with Anthurium, this happens. when you pollinate something, especially when you self-pollinate a complex hybrid, a plant that's already been hybridized, you self-pollinate that one and the seeds can show any kind of range of characteristics. So these were, I'm not trying to say that these were from the same seed batch, but these both were purchased as a King of Spades self-pollinated seedling, and they are very different. And so this was one exception where I was okay with having a duplicate because I think this counts as a different plant, don't you? So here's the plant that I just showed you, and then right next door, this is a beautiful Anthurium hybrid. This is sometimes I feel like I have to explain the names, but then I remember that if you're watching this video, it might be because you're just as into Anthurium as I am. So this is just Spiderbess x Vbep, and I just said that all backwards. This is Spiderbessiae crossed with Bvep, which that's kind of, you know, similar to this one, different. It's not quite the same, okay. But beautiful plant, stunning, stunning hybrid, and working on a new leaf back here, so very happy. This one is a high demand plant. This is an Anthurium forgetii, just simple. It's just a forgetii, but this one has very minimal veinings, very bullate texture. And this has always been one of my high demand plants. I have people who are often asking me for cuttings of it, and this is a new leaf, still floppy, still very bright green, but it will harden off to a darker green similar to that color there. And then just behind it, you know, I think this one is actually worth me getting out. I just have to, because this is a favorite of mine. And because there's a backstory. Let me go grab the other one. So this is the same plant. This is my Carla Blackier x Bvep, and it is one of my all-time favorites, and I have had so many people asking me for a cutting of this that I eventually decided to take a top cutting off of this plant. This is the base right here, and I had every intention of selling the top cutting, which was these two leaves. But as time wore on, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. This is the first leaf of the top cut since being cut. So that's why we've got a little bit of a size down. But I couldn't get rid of one of these. And this plant is at the maturity stage to flower. I believe that this base section of it had already given me its very first flower before I took the top cutting. So I decided instead, this one is really heavy. The root system on here is just delicious. I mean, look at that. I decided to keep both the top and the bottom in hopes that one day, maybe soon, they will both flower at the same time and I'll be able to produce a self-pollination of this plant. And get tiny little versions of this into more hands than I could have if I was just going by selling vegetative cuttings. So here is Carla x Bvep, one of my favorites, one of your favorites. The emergence, I have to put this one down. Hold on a second. The emergence on this plant are so beautiful and chocolatey. I'll try to find a photo to show to you. Definitely absolute one of my favorites. And again, I've had a lot of people ask me, can I please have a cutting? Do you have any cuttings? How much for your plant? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I love it too. And I can't, I don't think I can part with this one. So this is Anthurium, complicated name, okay? Do you just want to read it? It is R.G. Dressleri crossed with Carla Blackier Amanda Narrow. All those words mean that this is a beautiful plant. This is the most recent leaf, and it almost seems, I don't know if it was in pest treatment or just the fan that I referenced. Some of the velvet seems to kind of be rubbed off. Some of these older leaves are lightening in color just a little bit. So I'll show you this leaf. This is not the newest, but it might be the best looking leaf. This is just really a beautiful plant. Okay, it's currently in LECA, but it does need to be first of all repotted into a bigger pot because this thing dries out like crazy. And I would like to see how it does in my sphagnum and perlite mixture, but I'm not going to touch it because it is forming berries for me. I pollinated this with my Papillonotum A+. The pollination definitely took. The berries actually seem to be like really far along. So I'm not going to repot it right now, but I'm really excited to see what the babies from this would look like. This one, you guys, I'm going to use my fingers and I'm going to kind of like assault this plant just to get all the leaves facing you, because I think it just makes such a beautiful little frame. But this is Anthurium Stingray. Stingray is what I purchased it as. It's also recently been called Anthurium Ferrari. And this was probably in my last YouTube video I ever posted, which was my birthday last year. I purchased this plant, and my oh my, has this plant done well for me in the span of a year and a few months. I have already made back every penny I spent on it originally by selling cuttings. Here is my propagation of it. So just I took a cutting of the mother plant. It was a single node, partially rooted cutting, and this is its first new leaf since being cut. But I know that this, to people who appreciate this plant, it is an astounding plant. It is pretty highly sought after, which is why I've been so eager to snip, because it's been funding the hobby very well. But I'm done cutting this guy for a while because, as you can tell, I mean, it is not in fantastic shape. We have this leaf that's got some weird like coloration and kind of curling. This leaf doesn't look excellent, but we do have a new one on the way here, and I'm just gonna leave this plant alone for a good long while. But Anthurium Stingray, absolutely one of my favorite plants as well. All right, I would like to introduce this one as Anthurium carlablackiae, but there are some people who would get upset if I did call it that, just because there was a little bit of a discrepancy in the ID when I purchased this plant. So for me, it doesn't matter. For me, this is Anthurium carlablackiae. I mean, you can tell it's flowered already, and I've used the flower, the petiole, the leaf, all as identification. But the story is there was a carlablackiae that was pollinated and it produced seedlings. When the seedling batch was labeled, when somebody was writing down the name of what the seedlings were, they accidentally wrote Carlablackiae X Papillonotum. It was a mistake. It was not correct. This was not crossed with Papillonotum, but there are some people in the, I guess, in the bougie Anthurium community, which will say, okay, well then you can't call that pure Carla. You just can't. If it had anything else written, then that means you can't be sure, and you cannot call it pure Carla. I'm sorry, I don't agree. This is not a hybrid. There's no Papillonotum in this. I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit heated. I love my plant, and I wish everybody else would give it the respect that it deserves. It's not looking fantastic right now, and I have not yet determined what's causing some of the browning here, the yellowing on the tips, and then there was a really weird soft area here on the newest leaf that I just had to cut off. This one here is probably no, not that one. Yeah, that was the one. This is probably my favorite leaf on this plant that really gives you a good idea of how beautiful it is. If you're here and if you're in the comments, tell me what you think about the whole ID debacle. I mean, I acknowledge that we do need to rely on what's written down when the plants are labeled, because you just can't trust your memory. And with so many plants out there, so many hybrids these days, I would go off of what was written down. I would. For everything else in my collection, what was written down, what the plant was sold as, that is what it is. And I acknowledge the need to do that and to have that practice. But the story that I just told you, that's what I got from the seller. He was pretty sure he just wrote down the wrong thing. Accident, slip of the mind. But and the plant has grown, and the plant has shown me who she really is. So I don't know, I'm kind of on the side of the fence where, although I do value what's written down on the ID card, in a situation like that, it's cool, it's fine. I'll call this a carlablackiae, When I have sold pieces of it, I have disclosed the whole name thing. I just think it's a beautiful plant, don't you? Regardless of what it's called, regardless of who the father was, does not define her, okay? Oh, she looks so pretty on camera. This is Anthurium carlablackiae by FTG Crystal, which I showed you just above. Let me point to things. Well, you can't really see it, can you? So two plants that I've already introduced to you, Pure Carla and the FTG Crystallinum. It was on the top shelf. They were crossed to make this beauty, and oh, she's one of my favorites. She's doing very well. I can say that probably all the leaves are looking great, except for this may be the oldest leaf on the plant, and that's probably the worst looking leaf on the whole plant, just those little spots. She's so pretty. She kind of has this like wavy aspect to her. If I turn it to the side, you can see that all the leaves do seem to have, not so much this newest one, they have a little bit of a wave to them. Beautiful dark color with some pink undertones. Oh, I just love this plant so much. This is another carlablackiae hybrid. This one was crossed with forgetii, and I almost sold this recently and nobody wanted it because of how ugly the older leaves were. But I'm kind of glad that nobody bought this because this is a beautiful plant as well. Very unique shape. I love what the sinus does right here. It kind of like folds open instead of closing all the way. And I think the vein structure is really excellent. Yeah, some of the older leaves are not looking cute. The plant absolutely did have spider mites once, and it's just been through a lot. It desperately needs a repot. It is in a very small pot of leca. It is constantly running out of water, but I'm just gonna leave it be for right now because it's about to push out a new leaf, and then I think she's gonna get the spa treatment of her life and repot her into a beautiful chunky sphagnum and perlite mix. Kind of wish I filmed this video last week because the emergent on this beautiful Anthurium Dock Block Zara was so mauve. It was beautiful last week. It's still beautiful today. That's what this plant is, Anthurium Dock Block Zara. But I bought it because it really stood out to me as having a longer than typical leaf shape. And I think the veins were just a little bit extra to me. And so really very, very pretty plant. This is the second leaf in my care. This one was the first. I have this beautiful variegated Anthurium clarinervium. Was not my first variegated Anthurium, or was it? Because I know I have 3. I think this was my second, but it might be number 1 as far as place in my heart for variegated Anthurium. I think it's very, very beautiful. So the variegation here is going to start off as like this kind of bright neon yellow, and then it hardens down to white. You can see that it is an albo variegated plant. Here's one of the older leaves. I did have to trim off some browning, but yeah, it does harden down to like pretty much pure white. It's a beautiful specimen, and I took the first cutting a few months ago, and it's just now given me its first leaf. You want to see it? Yeah, I'll show it to you. It's just a teeny little baby. It was just a single node cutting from pretty far down on the plant, but it had insane roots. All of this is algae. Look at all that algae that grew. And I really don't think I should even try to get this close enough to the camera. I mean, okay, there you go. This leaf has just opened up. It is not fully hardened yet. So as it expands, the color will become more visible, but this is fun, showing you mom and baby. Clarinervium variegated. Not sure if I plan to sell this one right away or wait until it gets a little bit more size, but it will be up for grabs eventually. And it's so fun, isn't it, to have a favorite and then to duplicate it. This is awesome. I love plants. Wow. Wow, this one deserves to be gawked at. She's beautiful. This is a complex hybrid. I'm just gonna read what I wrote down here. This is called, don't ask me questions, Novelty G, Ace of Spades by Indonesian Portillier. So whatever that means, look at this. This is beautiful. This is actually the newest leaf right here For some reason, it's kind of behind an older leaf, so maybe I'll move it like that. She is so stunning. She's got a beautiful emergent color as well, very red. I love the wide sinus. I think this was the first like wide sinus thing I bought on purpose because I kind of do get the craze. And there's a lot of leaves on this baby. Like, it grows fast, it propagates well. I don't think I've lost a single cutting of it. Here are the roots, happy in some perlite sphagnum mixture. I do have a propagation of it. I do, and it's in the cabinet. That one I don't know if I'll show you because I do have the lid kind of duct taped or just sealed, and so it's gonna be kind of complicated to take off. The back of the leaf, at least here on my screen, it doesn't look like it's matching up quite right. You can tell that the petiole is pretty red, and the back of the leaf is a little bit more red than how it's coming off on camera. But this is a beautiful plant. If I keep saying this is a favorite, there should be like some kind of consequence because I cannot call all of these my favorite, but this is one of my favorites. It really is. For your sanity and mine, I've divided this tour into 3 parts. So go ahead and watch part 2 and 3 now.